Death Wish. The Bank Job. Big Dave. I'm no stranger to the horrors of war. That type of inhuman conflict can rip someone's soul apart, dissolving every fiber of their being. Like loose threads, gradually unraveling the very mental connections that keep us grounded to reality until what we are left is nothing more than a husk of our former selves. A hollowing where the only viable solution is a swift end to the mental anguish. Some of us can hold out longer than others, bracing our minds against the intrusive breach of atrocious thoughts grown by festering recollections. The only remedy for such a wound is time. All the same, it is time that pulls open those wounds, allowing for a cascade of regret and remorse to deal significant damage. Despite the similarities of our time enlisted, I knew I could never fathom what Mason was going through. All I could do was make an attempt to be by his side so he didn't have to face his demons alone. When I asked him, if you could do anything with us, and damn the consequences, what would it be? I never imagined anyone taking the idea seriously. The idea became more and more rational the more we entertained it. Every one of us had our own appalling experiences while in service, along with our personal grievances with the current state of the world. Maybe tackling our absurd bucket list would give us the sense of pride and accomplishment we were missing in our lives. I couldn't speak on behalf of everyone, but I knew for myself that I never felt right in the world ever since I came home from my first deployment. Garrison life was a bore. The majority of our time was spent training, attending pointless classes, performing one pointless equipment layout after another, or just waiting around for hours on end, full stop. Literally waiting around for not much of anything. Oh dear God, the standing around doing nothing, waiting for some dickhead with rank to grant us the privilege of being done doing absolutely nothing. All these years later, and I still can't wrap my head around the desire of higher-ups to watch us waiting with our thumbs up our asses. I chop it up to nothing more than the egotistical power trip of a megalomaniac. While staunching their opposition to the bucket list, both Honey Bun and Du Yun came around to the idea sooner than expected. Between all of us, they stood the most to lose from tagging along with the rest of us. They both had amazing careers with great benefits, doing stuff that greatly interested them. Not the kind of thing that was worth risking. Of all the reasons for them to accompany us, it had to be the most obvious. The girls were far smarter than us guys. We didn't stand a chance of pulling off a bank robbery without them. Over the course of many months, Honey Bun and Du Yun had us meticulously going over every detail from the location, the date and timing, step-by-step directions of the operation, and all the tools we would need. Since none of us had experience in this area of expertise, it was down to adjusting our personal skills to fit into the job. None of us wanted to get caught and face time behind bars. We might have been prepared to die, but no one wanted their freedom stripped away like a caged animal. If we were going to pull this off, we had to make damn sure to diminish the percentage of the chance of getting caught. There was a presidential debate in Richmond, Virginia. That proved to be the best option to serve as a distraction. A large portion of the city's first responders would be centered close to the event. Along with it being televised, we could use that to draw more attention away from the bank during the time of the robbery. Provided we played our cards right and kept to our timeline, we should have faced little to no resistance during or after. Honey Bun's only stipulation with participating in the job was to choose the particular bank and branch that we would be robbing. Richmond & Sons Credit Union, the same bank that oversaw the mortgage and eventual foreclosure of her family home during the 2008 housing market crash. She held a bitter skin in the game, which only drove her to fine-tune our preparations. That sour resolve made Mason's bucket list request just as important as her own, which in turn set an invigorating spark throughout the rest of the group. Not only would our efforts grant Mason the sense of camaraderie he most certainly needed, but award us all the sentiment of liberation standing against an entrenched cancer that plagued all of modern society. After many long nights spent theory-crafted countless strategies, we developed the best course of action to maximize our haul while minimizing our exposure. The plan was to hit the bank once the presidential debate began. On the downside, it meant during that time the bank would be closed, making the vault the only viable target. Forrester and Garrett spent a solid month casing the joint, keeping a close eye on all the employees and their schedules. The two spent hours on end from dawn to long past dusk watching from their van. They made sure to change up the van's appearance with varying decals representing phony companies, along with changing out the license plates. Pretty much what you expect out of a bad spy movie. Do-Yun pulled the riskiest play and went inside to get her own safe deposit box. She made sure to make weekly trips while keeping a sharp mental note of the interior layout. From the floor plan of each room, she was allowed to walk past to the exact location of the security cameras. Do-Yun provided the best possible blueprint of the bank. All the while, she would slowly place the tools we needed for the heist into her personal secure container. The most notable of which, the day before the job commenced, was a device that would allow Honeybun to remotely access the bank's servers from the inside, granting us a direct feed into their security system. Tex's task was to ensure that all eyes were glued to the presidential debate. The event was to take place at the University of Richmond Auditorium, the perfect platform for execution of the First Amendment, and just far enough away from the bank to grant us some breathing room if things turned sour. With a handful of burner phones and several Bluetooth speakers, Tex connected each device and set timers on the phones to play loud and annoying sounds the moment we breached into the bank. He placed each of the paired devices in seemingly random locations around the campus the night before the job. Honeybun was the most tech-savvy out of the group, and made haste to provide a few necessary upgrades to our loadout. To ensure we had a solid form of communications, she fitted the gas mask with microphones and a wired earpiece. She would remain in the van alongside Forrester, who took the role as our getaway driver, as well as keep an open ear to the police radio scanner. Inside the back of the van, Honey had an entire workstation set up with displays that would link to the security cameras inside the bank, making it a cakewalk for her to feed us intel. The cherry on top of the cake was the prototype scouting drone she had brought along to give us additional eyes in the sky. When the day finally came to put our half-baked plan into motion, it's safe to say a lot of us were on edge with a mix of emotions. As excited as we all were, none of us could shake the realization that we were indeed committing a crime. We didn't care about the crime itself, but the possibility of getting caught. Mason was adamant that in no way, shape, or form would he allow handcuffs placed on his wrists. Worst case scenario, he vowed to go out fighting until he drew his final breath. There wasn't anything any of us could say to change his mind. For reasons we may never fathom, Mason was prepared to die. He made a singular request from all of us. He wanted all of us to write a letter and then seal it shut. In the off chance that any of us should die during the job, the others were to take the sealed letter, and once they reached a safe location, were to unseal the letter and read it as a group. Mason referred to these death letters as a careful consideration of the final words we have to say before our demise. No one was permitted to share their final thoughts. Rather, those last words were saved for us to share as a group, as a family. With our death letters written and sealed, we proceeded to perform a final check of our equipment. Each of us were decked out head to toe in tactical gear courtesy of old Tex. Guy really went all out in stocking up for what he foresaw as the impending apocalypse. He provided boots, helmets, bulletproof vests, gloves, eye-pro, magazine pouches, medical kits, handguns, rifles, shotguns, countless types of ammunition, and most importantly, full-face NBC masks. Needless to say, it was overkill. But we accepted the generosity granted from Tex's personal arsenal. Do-Yun, Mason, Tex, Garrett, and I comprised the team to enter the bank. We arrived at the north end of the bank in a rust bucket Tex procured from a junkyard near his homestead in West Virginia. He had the pile of junk towed into Richmond on a trailer and repaired just enough to make it from our hideout to the heist location. No plates nor tags, nothing to connect the vehicle back to him, unless anyone willing to investigate the vehicle could find the scrapyard it came from in the middle of nowhere and try to pry information out of the toothless hillbilly that sold the car for cash. Tex held zero sentimental value in the car. Getting us here just to be left behind was its only purpose. Forrester and Honeybun parked the van in an alley on the opposite side of the building. We all did one final communications check to ensure our gear was in working order as we watched the last of the bank employees lock up and leave the building. The presidential debate was kicking off at 7 o'clock, and 10 minutes after that, Texas speakers would start going off all around the university. Not a word was shared as we waited for the clock to strike 10 after 7. Then, moments before go time, Honeybun chimed in on the radio. Okay, good news is that I have access to their security system. Bad news is that the signal I'm getting is cutting in and out. That's mainly due to the distance and material between my equipment in the van and the pineapple in the safe deposit box. A pineapple? Tex barked, bewildered at the mention. The hell kind of good is that gonna do us? No, not a pineapple, but a Wi-Fi pineapple. Ah, hell. Tex sighed and lit a smoke. They just gotta make everything connected to your phone nowadays. It's just slang, Tex. Garrett gave a chuckle as he motioned his fingers, requesting a quick puff. So what does this mean exactly? Will we not be able to connect to their network? Duyan rolled the window down a crack to alleviate the hot box of smoke growing in the car. Well, technically we are already connected to their network. We're just having trouble connecting to the, pineapple itself. The closer you guys get to the safe deposit box, the easier it will be to connect to the device. Basically, I'll be using you as a jumping off point to then make a solid connection and everything should be fine. Until then, we are in the dark. Just from the inside. A small figure whirled around the car windows before revealing itself to be Honeybun's drone hovering over the car's hood. But for now, I'll have eyes and ears outside of the bank. We'll let you know if there's trouble coming. The drone shot high up into the dark night sky as quickly as it came to us, just as an alarm on Tex's watch began to beep. Well, it's now or never, ladies. Tex kicked open his door with a forceful push of his boot. Make sure your masks are sealed. The 5 of us rushed out of the car and readied our weapons. It felt like the good old days during deployment. A fully armed team lining up to breach into enemy territory. In all the years I spent protecting the unworthy ultra-wealthy, not a single day spent protecting them gave me quite the same exhilarating feeling as that moment with my war buddies did. For the first time in a long time, I felt alive. Forrester started yelling incoherently right into our ears as Tex prepared a small breaching charge to blow through the locked door. Thankfully for all of us, Honeybun cut him off to translate Trinidad's inaudible frustration. Forrester wants to know why Tex left a bunch of explosives all over campus. Tex gave a hearty belt of laughter as he activated the tiny charge of C4, blowing apart the door's lock. Oh, calm your tits down. I swear I didn't leave a single bomb anywhere other than where we need to get into the vault. Okay. Then can you please explain to us why not only the cops on the police scanner, but all the news broadcasts are reporting gunshots and explosions all over the university? That, my friends, would be the masterful distraction in action. Relax. It's just those speakers going off, just like we planned. I held the door open as Do-Yun, Mason, and Garrett made their way into the lobby. What did you have those speakers play exactly? Let's see. Fireworks sounds, machine gun tutorials, yes, a few explosions on repeat, and a couple hour-long tracks of screaming goats. Should keep the pigs busy long enough for us to get the hell out of Dodge. I couldn't argue with the results. It was more than enough for all the attention to be focused far away from the bank. Sure, it sounded foolish in the moment, but after all was said and done, it was going to make one hell of an interesting story. Once we were inside the bank's lobby, Honey radioed to inform us that she had a stronger connection to the device in the safe deposit box. We just need to hold out for a moment so she could do whatever technical magic she needed to do to establish the van's connection with the bank's internal network. Rather than stand around doing nothing, we each started getting our bags together to carry all the money. Tex wandered off to find the door to the back alley, so we had a quick exit to escape. Okay, I'm in. More good news and bad news. Do-Yun tilted her head for us to follow her to the safe deposit box room near the vault. Give it to us straight. We don't have a lot of time. Our entrance was pretty damn loud. It's just a matter of time before the damn building's alarm brings every cop in town this way. That's both the good news and bad news. Good news is the alarm was shut off right after Tex blasted in the door. The bad news is that it wasn't me. Someone had to put in an authorization to turn it off, but that was before I managed to get into their system. I am pulling up the security feed now. As for outside, the drone footage shows we are in the clear. Tex, hold the door and get ready for us. Mason, Garrett, and Big Dave, we're ditching the vault idea entirely. Hey, that wasn't the deal. Mason quickly sounded his disapproval. We can't leave empty-handed after how far we got. We're so close. Before I could say anything agreeing with Do-Yun that things had already taken a turn from our initial plans, she replied, We aren't leaving empty-handed. The vault was never a viable option. No one here knows how to open one, and all the plastic explosive Tex has won't be enough to leave a scratch on it. We're taking the safe deposit boxes. As far as consolation prizes go, the safe deposit boxes were a fine collection of mystery items to have. For all we knew, they could have contained stuff far more valuable than the entire vault. The only downside was the dwindling time we had left. We could only take what we could carry on a single trip. It was better than nothing, and enough to stop Mason's protest. With another quick blast of Tex's well-placed C4, we made it into the back hallway of the bank with the lobby behind us. Du-Yun led the way, all too familiar with the bank's layouts thanks to her many visits. As the door to the safe deposit room came up, we all lined up along the wall, bracing for our next emphatic infiltration. Mason gave me a nudge for the remote. He wanted to be the one to detonate it this time. I figured, what the hell? This was his idea after all. Might as well let him have some childish fun. Although the gas mask obscured his face, I could tell that pressing firm on the big red button gave him enough joy to smile from ear to ear. The doorknob blasted off with little resistance, and Mason gave several pumping moves with his arms along with a light dance with his legs. Oh man, did that one small press of a button make him feel young again. I tried to stay focused on the mission at hand, but I couldn't help but participate in his moment of amusement. With a brief jiggle of my hips and swaying of my arms, I did my best Rick Astley impersonation I could muster. It was enough to make the both of us laugh with embarrassment. When you two are done dancing with each other, we can move along. Honeybun radioed in, calling out the prancing her and Forrester just witnessed. Mason looked to the corner part of the ceiling where the hallway had met the room with the safe deposit boxes and waved. Oh, sweet! You can see us now! Hey, trust me, I got plenty of moves like that to show you once we're out of here. Honeybun held a better focus on the job at hand than Mason did as she completely ignored his flirtatious advance. Outside is still good. Scanner chatter is still directed towards the campus, and I'm pulling up a live feed from all the cameras inside now. I see Tex as he has the back door propped open. The four of you are in clear view, and that means we should be good too. The moment Mason heard Honey utter the word good, he walked past me and Garrett and pushed the door open. Mason, wait! Don't go in there! You're not... Before Honeybun could finish her thought, bullets started firing out of the room. Mason was caught in the midst of the hailfire barrage, but was fast enough to lunge himself over towards Du-Yun. Blood gushed out from his arms, staining his shirt and tactical vest red. Thankfully, he dove right into the reach of the best damn medic we ever had the privilege to serve alongside. Garrett ducked low and I right above him, and the two of us returned fire into the room, alternating our firing position to allow breathing room to reload when necessary. Du-Yun put all her years of experience to work, tying off the upper part of his shoulder to slow the bleeding and then compressing it down tight to stop it. There was no rhyme or reason for there to be another living soul here except for ourselves. All the same, I was damn glad Tex insisted on coming as prepared as we did. The unfortunate reality we now faced was all this commotion the gunfire caused would surely draw attention to our now completely botched robbery attempt. We couldn't peek into the room to assess our adversaries or their numbers. The best hope we had was to send as much lead down range as we could until they died or ran out of bullets, whichever came first. I hope to high hell your masks are on tight, Tex said in all of our earpieces as he tossed a smoking canister down the hall right into the room with all the guys firing at us. We heard them cough and yell, but each breath they took only made the gas sting more. Two of them tried running out of the room, only to be met with the fast pull of our triggers, then collapsed lifeless to the floor. The gunshots ceased. We were finally in the clear, or so we thought. I noticed Mason was nearly choking, which was a good indication that he didn't have his mask on tight enough, allowing for the nasty airborne chemicals to seep in through the cracks, nearly making him vomit. Death by drowning in your own vomit was not how I would want to go out, so I picked him up, slung him over my shoulder, and ran with him to the lobby. We have one shot at this, so listen up. I spoke stern and clear into the mic wired into my gas mask. Forrester and Honeybun, get to the pickup location. I'm getting Mason ready for extraction. At this point, there's no way in hell we're leaving here empty-handed. Tex, Garrett, and Du-Yun, get as many of those safe deposit boxes out of there as you can carry. Now move, move, move. As we reached the lobby, Mason removed his gas mask and then proceeded to cover my side in vomit. Wait, just put me down. I stopped by a countertop and laid Mason against it. His face was pale as if the life had just been sucked out of him, but he forced himself to crack a smile. Chunks of his lunch dangled from his chin along with a pinkish bile. From the looks of it, he was coughing up blood. I took a step back to get a better look at him, only to be stunned by the bloody mess before me. Mason had gotten shot several times right in the gut. The shot in his arm was of little concern. I didn't know what to make of it. The bulletproof vest should have helped against one of the rounds that hit him, but from the looks of it, they pierced right through. "I'm fine," Mason choked. "Get the safe boxes and get out of here." I knelt down to meet his gaze, broken, tired, yet somehow happy. "We're not leaving you here. Fucking Tex. That could have been any one of us. All that talk about being prepared for anything, a lot of good that did." Mason weakly raised his fist and pounded gently on his chest. "This isn't Tex's fault. I took the plates out. Like I said, worst case scenario, I'm not going to be taken in." I could not believe what I was hearing. Mason was so far gone in his own mind, he willingly volunteered to remove the very thing offering him protection. Was this his plan all along? Did he bank on the chance that we might get caught so he could go out like this? Maybe so, or more likely, he had finally made peace with the world and this whole event was his way of having one last hurrah with the old gang. I've been in dark places, parts of my own thoughts so messed up I never wanted to think again, but I'd never been so lost in those thoughts that I walked down the path of absolution like Mason. "Let us help you." I fought back tears as all I could think of was the day Anderson died when we were deployed. "Let's get you out of here, man. Let's get you home." I held a tight grip on Mason's hand, clenching it in a vain attempt to keep him with me longer, but there was no stopping what was coming. I knew that, and so did Mason. Honey called in letting us know that she and Force are ready to pick us up as the other three dragged the heavy bags filled with safe deposit boxes. Everyone was trying to convince Mason to let us take us with him, but he just slumped back and shook his head. "This is it for me. Please, just go." He reached into one of his magazine pouches and pulled out his death letter, the envelope stained with drops of bright blood. "Thanks, you guys. I needed this. I really needed to feel alive again. I'm just gonna slow you down. Besides, this marble tile, this is a good place to die, and not in the back of that van with the rambling islander." "Fuck you, man," Forrester replied with a lump in his throat over the comms. Honeybun tried to say something, but it was just a complete mess of sobbing. The two were closer than any of us. It's safe to say that she'd hoped one day Mason would make an honest woman out of her. Instead, Harry sat in a pool of his own blood trying to say goodbye. Du-Yun, reluctantly, accepted Mason's death letter, kissed him on the forehead, and walked away. Tex looked at Mason, then to the bloody vest, then back to Mason. He was at a complete loss for words, given nothing more than the nod before he followed Du-Yun. Garrett gave Mason a single fist bump, followed by an opening his fist like an explosion. Then it was my turn to say goodbye. I just stood up and walked away. I didn't have the stomach for what I should have done next. It was all too hard to experience another friend dying alone. All I managed to do was follow the rest of the group towards the back door and assist with loading the van. Once all the bags were loaded, the faint sound of police sirens began echoing down the road. Du-Yun was near a breaking point, as expected. It was a lot to take in. That made handing her my death letter that much harder. "I'll buy you some time. Don't you dare open it unless you know for a fact I'm dead." Before anyone could protest and waste any more valuable time, I ran away from them and back into the bank, making sure to close the door behind me so that they had no other option than to leave. The look on Mason's face when I walked back into the room was worth staying behind. He was out of it, but coherent enough to show exhaustive confusion. I sat down next to him, sharing the same growing pool of blood. "Why are you still here?" "Seeing as how it was my idea to antagonize this whole bank heist bullshit out of you, I feel it's fitting that I see it to the end right alongside you." "Oh, so you feel guilty. Great." "No, I'm grateful. We all needed this as much as you did. No one wanted to inflate your ego by letting you know. Well, you're a bit late. It's a well-known fact. that my ego is in love with himself. That's just narcissism. You and your big words, as big as those tree trunks you call arms. That's a healthy diet and exercise. Proactive self-care. Kind of like robbing a bank with a band of veteran misfits. With every moment that passed, Mason was fading away more and more. What happens now? I didn't think this far ahead. I hope they stick to the list. Well, actually, I hope they got a decent score from those boxes and then stick to the list. Any chance you'll be able to hit the reserve? I hung my head down. Nah, at this point it'll take the world ending for me to have a chance at that. What about you? What's waiting for you after all this? The screeching wails of sirens were close now. So close it was safe to assume the cops had finally made it to the bank. I turned to look at Mason just to discover his gurgled breaths had stopped as he lay motionless against the counter. With that grim realization, I figured he knew the answer to my question, but would never be able to share it with me. I tossed my gun to the ground, removed my gear, and stood tall with my hands high, ready for the police officers to arrest me. Mason refused to give them a moment of his life. In turn, I refused to utter a single word about the bank job. I've done enough talking for one night to keep my lips sealed for good. The bank job. Garrett. The entire affair ended worse than any of us could imagine. All the best laid plans meant nothing when faced with unforeseen certainty beyond our control. Fuck the vault. Fuck the haul from the safe deposit boxes. All the money the bank held meant nothing if we couldn't share it with Mason and Big Dave. Not only was the entire heist completely botched, but we lost two of the most important people in our lives. I wanted to be mad. I wanted to destroy something. In the end, none of my rage mattered. Nothing would bring Mason back or free Big Dave. Forrester drove the van all the way back to Texas Homestead in West Virginia while the rest of us sat in silence. We all felt the same heavy weight of what had just happened. No one thought of the right words to speak that would lessen the impact that night had on every one of us. Mason's death was enough to break us, but Dave's choice to stay behind was incomprehensible. The only logical reason he had to stay behind was so that Mason didn't have to die alone. Dave's decision to stay back may not have made sense, but it did grant us ample time to escape undetected. When the cops showed up and arrested him, Dave did the smartest thing anyone could possibly do in that situation. He kept his mouth shut. In the days following the heist, it became one of the most prevalent topics discussed on the news. Texas' disruption at the university definitely aided in increasing the bank robbery's relevance. Of course, an investigation followed suit, but the feds hit a roadblock. Big Dave refused to speak. If anything, this garnered far more attention than we were comfortable with, but thankfully we were met with a final saving grace. Each of the presidential candidates used the event as fodder for their campaign. Rather than the news focusing on the intricate details of the heist itself, everyone began tearing each other apart over the debate of gun violence and national security. A fight as old as time, and one that moved the spotlight off the individuals involved to look at the bigger picture. We spent about a week with Tex. All the while, our haul sat in the back of the van untouched as we mourned our collective loss. Looking back, I think hitting the safe deposit boxes was Stu Yun's intention from the get-go. Along with the Wi-Fi pineapple, she also included 3 portable drills and a couple pry bars to be locked away in her personal lockbox. They made busting the locks and the doors secure in each box to the wall easy work. Despite having only a few minutes, we were able to load up 55 of the smaller boxes and only 2 of the medium-sized ones, while we ignored the larger ones. In that particular situation, the quantity of our loot surpassed the overall proportion. Ultimately, the contents of each box would judge the overall outcome of the job. Once we came to grips with the newfound reality of having 2 fewer members in our group, we brought the boxes inside Tex's living room. After everything that transpired, we agreed that Mason and Big Dave sacrificed their lives for these boxes and our escape. We might as well see what they paid for so dearly. Some boxes were better than others, which was to be expected. A few held cold hard cash, others gemstones. A bunch of them contained valuable heirlooms and collectibles, and damn near all of them had bundles of paperwork. Many of the documents were of personal importance for the box's owners, and since we weren't in the business of identity theft, we set aside all the wills, birth certificates, and social security cards to be burned. Obviously, the righteous thing to do, at the very least, was to make arrangement to return the documents. But seeing as how we didn't want to chance getting caught nor garner any unwanted attention, we would only go so far as to erase any sensitive information from failing into more unsavory hands than our own. In total, we managed to collect just under $850,000 in cash. The physical items, if sold at fair market value to the right buyer, would net around the same. However, due to their rarity and uniqueness, it wasn't safe to advertise them in our custody. For that, we would have to take a financial hit and sell each piece to people with questionable morality, more so than our own. Doing so would take quite a long time, so we left the task to Tex, who seemed to be best suited to finding shady people to strike a deal with, let alone the fact he had nothing better to do. After assessing our spoils, we debated our next move. Forrester and I were set to quit our boring day jobs and live off our portions of the earnings. Honeybun enjoyed her career enough to continue working until her current prototype drone project was finalized, which lined up around the end of her employment contract with the Department of Defense. As for Do-Yun, there was one thing about the botched heist that she refused to relinquish. Who the hell were the guys inside the bank, and why were they there? The news reported fatalities, but details regarding the identity and affiliation of the deceased were never disclosed. Had they been official bank employees, there would have been some indication as such, but instead, it was as if they were just nameless bodies to dramatize the incident, allowing greater public attention. While the rest of us shrugged it off, Do-Yun was fixated on figuring out why they were there when no one should have been. She focused her obsession on the safe deposit box they had pulled out before we entered the room. The one box she was adamant we add to our collection. What she discovered inside the box invigorated our desire to continue on with the bucket list. While we might never know the identities of those men, we had a better idea of why they were there at the bank that night. The box contained several notebooks containing sensitive documents pertaining to an almost endless list of corporations and politicians. Many of them, although loosely, were interconnected with one another through some government emergency program, although the specifications on which were hazy to us. What did pique our attention were documents that gave us insight to the corporations. It was a treasure trove of hard evidence containing tax evasion, lists of offshore accounts, records of money laundering, pretty much any major blue-collar crime one can imagine. Most notable of all these records were that of a non-profit organization that was in the practice of doing nothing more than a money-printing machine for the ultra-wealthy. Do-Yun had a distinct disdain for the exorbitant affluent. The entire group had been through hell. We were emotionally traumatized from the loss of our friends, but with our winnings was a wonderfully curated list of an establishment each one of us despised. This catalog of nefarious institutions and individuals would become a list of potential targets. We agreed to do our best to stick to the bucket list. We owed it to Mason and Big Dave. Eventually we would get there, but for the time being we would relish in what we gained while appreciating what we lost. That left only one thing for the now 5 of us to do together. We sat at Tex's dining room table and proceeded to read Mason's death letter. Death Letter Mason. To the only family I'll ever care to have. It's safe to say I never had proper role models in life. My parents pushed me to enlist the moment I came of age just to rush me out of their lives. Ever since my little brother died, I was seen as a burden. Their chosen son, the one they planned, the one they put all their energy and love into was gone, and all that was left was me. In their grief, I became their emotional punching bag, always the target to throw blame. In truth, I was just a child and deserved none of their attacks. At first I felt that I could finally find a sense of family in the army. Instead, I found nothing but disdain for my corrupt leadership. My voice meant nothing, my opinions invalid. Events I witnessed were ignored. So I learned quickly to keep my mouth shut and my walls stayed strong. Until I met all of you, I had no family, no close friends beyond the occasional drinking buddy, no one I could trust. Life had beaten me down from a young age, which made it easy to fall in line, do as I was told, whatever it took to get by unscathed. I willingly volunteered to join an endless flock of sheep just to fit in and not be noticed. It sickened me to the core, pledging blind obedience to a system I hated with every fiber of my existence. I knew there was something wrong with the world, yet was completely powerless to change any of it. Then, I realized that the most evil in the world was because of people like me. Millions of people fall in line without question, and in their inaction allowed corruption to fester. The powerful would always find ways to protect themselves, even if it meant sacrificing people like me. I knew that by allowing these feelings to rest unspoken, they would only rot away any hope I had left for humanity. What mattered most was that I took action. Du-Yun, I'm sorry for what happened to you back at the checkpoint in Kanduz. That kind of shit would fuck anybody up for life, and you didn't deserve any of it. You came out to do your job, to help others. Best damn medic that battalion ever had. In return for braving the horrors of war, you were given the stuff of nightmares. What happened to you will sit with me for the rest of my life, because in the moment I did nothing to aid you, and for that, I'm sorry. Garrett, I wish I had your balls. You raised hell that night while I stayed stiff and silent. The moment you heard her muffled cries for help, you barged into that tent with a vigor and rage that would frighten the dead. Before I could allow that vision to fill me with the same valor, they had you pinned to the dirt with M4s pointed to your skull. The little courage built inside me quickly vanished. Knowing what I know, it would have been worth it to get a few punches in. When we got back to the FOB, Garrett was in confinement for attacking an officer, which later resulted in him getting dishonorably discharged. When Du-Yun reported the incident in his defense, I found it to be the right time to break my silence and corroborate her statement as a witness. Our efforts were in vain, as our chain of command created a paper trail of documentation that stated that she was never out on that particular scouting mission. They even convinced her first-line supervisor and officers in command of the medics to support that false claim. To this day, I couldn't imagine what was running through her head. To have her horrific lived experience covered up to protect the bastard that stole the remaining innocence she had. Needless to say, she went completely apeshit and wrecked the aid station. In turn, they sent her back stateside under a mental health hold. I didn't know what else to do, as my options were limited while I was deployed. I tried speaking up, letting them know I was there and saw what happened. They pulled me from all future missions and had me filling sandbags on Mayor Cell for weeks. Then when they found out my free time was spent at the MWR using the computers to research what avenues I could take to have my voice heard, I was banned from the building. Everything I tried to do just made my life more miserable over there, and my last resort was to try to go through the battalion chaplain. We had just one meeting, and I poured my heart out to him. I talked about the event, how it was covered up, the different ways it was affecting me, and even talked about the years of mental and emotional torture my chain of command put me through. In the end, it felt refreshing to have someone listen to all my grievances. I trusted him. He was a man of God, and his position granted him a crazy amount of influence. I really thought that for a final effort, it was the best Hail Mary I could muster. But as with most things in my life, that last-ditch effort resulted in a train wreck that would mark the course for the rest of my life. Turns out that speaking to the chaplain managed to make things worse. Our conversation was not in confidence. He told my commander that I was paranoid, agitated, and obsessed with an event that never took place. The chain of command unanimously agreed that I was unfit for duty and that my experiences in Afghanistan made me develop a severe case of PTSD. They took my weapon away, claiming that I was a danger to myself and others. Just like Du-Yun and Garrett, they made arrangements for me to get sent back to Drum. While I waited for my flight off the Kunduz Plateau, they assigned a couple of E-Fuzzies just fresh from being demoted and working on extra duty to monitor me in shifts because, I was potentially going to kill myself. I was sick of all the bullshit and knew that my window for revenge was closing. The night before my flight to Bagram, I laced the drink of the guy watching me with crushed-up Ambien, thanks to Du-Yun for sneaking me the pills earlier in the deployment. Within 20 minutes, he was out like a light. I took that opportunity to do what they trained me to do best. Take a life. Now, this will be news to all of you. We all saw the news reports of that dickless prick dying. They blamed it on one of the local nationals that had access to the FOB, but truth being told, I was the one that slit his throat. By the time they found his body lifeless in his bunk, I was on a flight out of the region. Of course, I was questioned once we reached Bagram, but thankfully the guy watching over me that night vouched for me being there all night. Obviously, he didn't want to admit to sleeping on the job and getting into more trouble. It was the perfect storm of circumstances that allowed me to get away with murder. By reading this, one thing is true. I'm dead. If I were a betting man, I'd wager I've lasted longer than Forrester. But if not, he gets my share of whatever spoils we managed to get away with. The reason why I'm even bothering telling you all this is because I want you to know he didn't die a hero. He was killed in cold blood under the cover of darkness in his own cot as he slept. Fucker never saw it coming. It was the best justice I could imagine, and honestly, just reminiscing about it makes me smile. Sure, all the world might see him as a war hero that died for his country, but we know he's just another dead rapist, human garbage that I sent straight to hell. Killing him was my only goal. I didn't care if I was caught, but getting away with it feels so damn good. You are my family. I'll die for you. I'll kill for you. Life has fucked all of us over, but at the very least we have one another. My hope is that we do what makes us happy without allowing more evil to fill the world. There are plenty of people out there that have been just as screwed over by the broken system as we have. My dream is to one day see the system broken. I pray that our bucket list of adventures will be complete, and those missions will result in a new, fairer world where the scumbags at the top know what it's like to live at the bottom. I'm sure I went out with a bang. My departure from life shouldn't make you sad. Just smile right through it, for I am in a better place. One day, when all our work is finally done, we can rest easy knowing that we made the world a better place for people like us. In the face of absolute and certain death, fear not and stay the course, for a departure from this atrocious world is preferable to remaining under the heels of those deserving unmitigated ruination. This is my death wish. Faithfully, Mason Frey.